isn't it? It's so rich. And it's all on one page. If you were to write about that, think of all the linear noting taking that you'd have to do. Okay? Now, as I said, Tony Bazan is the guy who's kind of industrialized mind maps, but that's okay. He's entitled to do that. He does it very beautifully, all right? So that's why I kind of use some of his materials, accrediting them to him as well. But all the different things you can use mind maps for. And this next one, I'm skipping through these, but you have them on handouts as well. This is, for me, interesting because it's A, all through the alphabet, back up again. All the different things you can use them for. The list is endless.
The Polish have a particular thing about this and that because they don't have them in their own language. Say and tell, you will have noticed that, won't you? Now that you'll see that across other languages as well. You'll see it in Spaniards and French getting they say, for example, I say you instead of I tell you. Now that's a particular grammar thing because I say you normally isn't followed by the indirect object pronoun. The other one is I tell you. Okay? So that's the problem there. Hear and listen. What's the difference between hear and listen? Can anybody tell me the difference between hear and listen?
Listen is something you do consciously.
Yes.
Hear isn't. Just
react to something. Listen is what you're all doing now at the moment because the camera is in the room and you know that I have to be listened to, okay? So you're listening. Hear, you're born hearing, okay? It's an ability that you have, that you're born with. And some languages focus on that. We don't too much. For example, in Spanish, they say oíste, which means has oído, that's another form of saying, did you hear it or have you heard it? But has escuchado means have you listened to what you said and what he said and do you agree with it? So they have two different words and they're very specific in what they mean. We don't do that quite often in English.
So we've got these kind of exercises, use the present perfect to complete these sentences. I the Eiffel Tower, she has eaten, they, and we. Okay. So I know that I've got to put in have and the past participle and off I go and I put it in and that's all well and good. Do I actually understand when to use these things? No. I just know that I've got to put have and the past participle, and as long as I know those forms, then I can complete the exercise. And I think what happens with a lot of more novice and trainee teachers is they say, but look, I explained it and they filled in it all, they filled in all those lovely Murphy exercises and they got it all right, so they know it. No, they don't. They know it, but they can't use it. And do they really understand what it means? So I think we have to be very mindful of this kind of thing. I'm not saying there's no place for repetitive exercises based on form, because that's what this is. There is some place for learning the form. There's lots of irregular verbs you've got to remember, and clearly there's some place for that. But I think it's a small place in the general scheme of things.
So in any utterance, the nouns, the full verbs, the adverbs, the adjectives, and the numbers, if there are any, they will be stressed. So in ordinary speech, we will always stress these open class words. We will always not stress those words. So what I want is fish, chips, peas. Fish, chips, peas.
Fish, chips, peas. Fish, chips, peas. Fish, chips, peas.
It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden.
It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden. It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden. It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden.
Stop. Listen, it's in the shed at the bottom of the garden. I'm not speaking fast. Agreed? It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden. That's normal. If English was operating on the same system as Italian, it would have taken 4 times as long to say those 12 syllables as fish, chips, peas. Agreed? A little bit of sleight of hand here, but it's pretty well true. So what's happening here? If you think back to that diagram, we've got fish, chips, peas. Word class?
Nouns.
Nouns. or stressed. It's in the shed at the bottom of the garden. Shed, bottom, it's a noun, believe me. Garden, noun. 3 stressed syllables. So the major difference between the acoustic delivery of a language like English and a normal language like Italian is syllable timed. The number of syllables determines how long it takes to say it. English is stress timed. The number of stressed syllables determines how long it takes to say something. And that leads to these bizarre, normal situations where we say it's in the shed at the bottom of the garden, and our learners hear shed, bottom, garden. They hear noise. They hear noise with these islands of stressed syllables. And their job, and you see them frowning in the classroom when this happens, their job is to somehow reconstruct the whole of that sentence from these little bits that they've heard. They've heard shed, bot, gar. And somehow they've got to work out, he must have said it's in the shed at the bottom of the gar. It's a big leap.